You know, every organ in the body can have tumor, and tumors are divided into benign and malignant. Generally, discussion about such tumors is in one lecture or one discussion. But the ovarian tumors are so rampant and so important because they carry certain mortality. It's a huge subject in a way. That's why the program organizers, they have split the topic of ovarian tumors into benign tumors of the ovary and malignant tumors of. Today we are going to talk only about benign tumors. The most important message in this class is in young patients, most of the tumors of the ovary are benign. So if a young patient comes to us and has ovarian tumor diagnosed clinically or by ultrasound scan, don't jump at it. Tumor, the word tumor creates a scare in the minds of our patients. Rasoli is the word which is a terrible word, and it creates anxiety and tension in the minds of the patient and the family. But I put this as number one slide that in most of the young patients, the ovarian tumors are benign. First part of my talk is about theoretical part of it. Then we come to the clinical side of it. The theoretical benign tumors of the ovary can be divided into non-neoplastic or neoplastic. Generally speaking, when we say tumor, it is neoplastic. When we say tumor of any part, it means neoplastic. Neoplastic could be benign and malignant. But because the ovary gets a cyst in it, which is not really neoplastic, it is functional. It is non-neoplastic. And clinically, the ovary has a cyst which could be non-neoplastic or neoplastic. That's why this slide that the ovarian tumors are non-neoplastic as well as neoplastic. First, we'll talk about non-neoplastic and then neoplastic. Within non-neoplastic, again, one group is functional ovarian cysts. Now we call cysts because most of the ovarian tumors are cysts. So cyst and tumor are synonymous, interchangeable. They are used interchangeable. So non-neoplastic tumors could be, or cysts could be functional. Functional are, the functions of the ovary are that every month the primordial follicle, it grows into Graafian follicle, then it sheds ovum, and that Graafian follicle becomes corpus luteum. This is the function of the ovary or the primordial follicle within the ovary. So in that function, the first is follicular cyst, that it may not shed ovum, it continues to grow and forms a follicular cyst. The other one is it has shed ovum, and the corpus luteum, which is formed after shedding of the ovum, that forms a cyst which is known as theca luteal cyst. So functional cysts, generally in practice we see either they are follicular cysts or theca luteal cysts, but collectively they are called functional cysts. Functional cyst means non-neoplastic ovarian cyst. The other is some pathology, not neoplasm. Some pathology is there within the ovary, which leads to enlargement of the ovary or cyst formation in the ovary. One is, we are not going to talk about those because they are independent subjects. I think I've already spoken to you about PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome or polycystic ovarian disease, PCO, and endometrioma in case when there is endometriosis of the genital tract. So these are pathological forms of the non-neoplastic cysts and endometrioma, generally called chocolate cysts, are the cyst with the blood inside in it, that is hemorrhagic cyst. So these are the non-neoplastic which we meet every day. They can happen. Obviously, they are non-neoplastic, so they are not going to become malignant. They are not going to cause any serious problem, but only functional problem, which can be dealt with either by waiting for that cyst to resolve or by treating it by medication. And generally, they don't need surgery for the functional cysts as they are. The neoplastic cysts, which are really the tumors of the ovary, are, ovary has three components. One is surface epithelium. The other one is the granulosa, the germinal epithelium, which forms the primordial follicle and things like that. And third is the stroma of the ovary. So neoplastic cysts can arise from the surface epithelium, from the stroma of the ovary, or sex cord or sex cells of the ovary. So 3A, B, C. Three types of benign neoplasms of the ovary can be seen. Most common, most common are surface epithelial tumors. And these are further divided into serous, mucinous, and endodermoid and Brenner tumor. These are all from the surface. The germ cell tumors are from the germinal epithelium. They are generally benign, but they could become malignant. And similarly, sex cord tumors, they are thecoma and androblastoma. All of them. You don't have to remember all these names. Just remember that neoplastic benign ovarian tumors either arise from the surface. First, they are common, serous, mucinous, and endometrioid, or uncommon tumors are arising from the germ cells or from the sex cord. Then I told you the functional ovarian tumors or cysts are they arise from the follicular cyst or corpus luteum cyst or theca luteum cyst. I've already described to you. These are three forms, but the presentation is almost same, clinically difficult to differentiate. So we'll talk about the management in a way. But the presentation of all three follicular cysts, that is theca luteum cyst, corpus luteum cyst, and follicular cyst, they are I've given you in the table form. So minor variations like age group. Follicular cyst is seen more in adolescents. With lutein cyst is seen in reproductive age when the ovum is shed and corpus luteum is formed, from there corpus luteum cyst is formed. And similarly, the theca lutein cysts are also formed. It's seen in adolescent age, reproductive age, sorry. Cause could be anything, is unknown. Maybe it is hyperstimulation or maintenance of any of these forms. Size, follicular cyst doesn't grow too big. Generally speaking, less than 5 centimeter, here it says 8 centimeter, but up to 5 centimeter we accept as follicular cyst, but it's bigger. The lutein cysts are bigger than that, and theca cysts are even bigger than that. All these cysts, they can be bilateral or unilateral, but mostly corpus luteum is formed on one side, so it would be unilateral. In the case of follicular cyst, is thin-walled, unilocular, filled with straw-colored fluid. Whereas corpus luteum cyst is, because there is a hemorrhage in that, it looks pink, and when we cut the section, the corpus luteum is yellow in color, so that yellowish color shows up. And whereas theca lutein cyst It is multicystic, grayish blue. That's the coloration. Histopathology, you see the cells in follicular cysts, you see the lining epithelium of the granulosa, those granulosa cells, and corpus luteum, you see luteinized cells, and the same in other type. Clinical features, basically, they lie low. They are generally without any symptoms, but rarely they may cause pain if there is a complication or discomfort in the lower abdomen. If you do make a diagnosis of management of functional cyst is very easy. First thing is, if you make a diagnosis of functional cyst, don't do anything. Just observe. Generally, these functional cysts, they resolve spontaneously and without any medical or surgical treatment, only observation. But sometimes the OCP, oral contraceptive pill, can be prescribed to suppress internal production of FSH, LH, so that the stimulation to the ovary is not there, and generally their functions is resolved quickly with OCP, oral contraceptive pill. But even if you don't prescribe OCP, they just keep the patient under observation. They are young patients, generally even unmarried patients. So parents get very upset, worried with the diagnosis of cyst. I told you, cyst is synonymous with tumor. Tumor is, it raises anxiety like anything. So in such cases, the patient needs only reassurance and counseling about the management that will do nothing. After 2 or 3 months, it will disappear spontaneously. That's very reassuring. So spontaneous resorption does take place, but rarely if there's a complication, then like hemorrhage, like torsion, then surgical treatment is required, but that's very rare. Generally, OCP or just observation will help the management. Now we come to neoplastic tumors. Neoplastic tumors, I told you, they arise from three sources: surface epithelium, the stroma of the ovary, and germ cells. These are three types of ovarian tumors. Before we go into the various types or their discussion, they are very common. Unfortunately, ovarian tumors are very commonly seen, and they have certain racial distribution. That is, they are seen in white population more than Japanese. They have very few or very little ovarian tumors. So some racial component is there, maybe genetically inherited. And economic status also, it is seen more in high, rich people or highly industrialized countries than the poor countries. And environmental factors are those patients who work in certain areas, telecom and things like that, they are more likely to develop this. So, and some environmental factors. Well, as I said, origin is mostly from the majority of the brain ovarian tumors they arise from the surface epithelium or mesoepithelium of the ovary or surface. This incidence is 80% tumors of the ovary are epithelial tumors or surface epithelium. 80%. And amongst those, that majority are serous cystadenomas, and then next comes mucinous cystadenomas, and very few endometrioid are unspecified. So whenever there's a benign ovarian cyst, first diagnosis is serous cystadenoma, then mucinous, others are uncommon. As I gave you the table form of non-functional, non-neoplastic functional ovarian cysts. So similarly, this is the table for mucinous cyst, serous cyst. Brenner tumor is the one which is arises from the fibrous tissue, fibroma, and benign cystic teratoma. This is an important component. It is also called dermoid cyst. benign cystic teratoma, also called dermoid cyst. This is a benign uh, cystic teratoma, but if teratoma becomes solid, it is malignant. It is malignant. So as long as it is cystic, it is benign. The incidence of various that 12 to 15% of epithelial tumors are mucinous, 50% are serous, and brain tumor is very uncommon. It and if there's germ cell tumor, 95% chances are it is dermoid cyst or benign cystic teratoma, where they can be unilateral, they can be bilateral, but serous cystomas are mostly bilateral, others are unilateral. Malignant change is possible. So, there's a disadvantage of dividing this talk into benign and malignant, because all these benign tumors, neoplastic tumors, can become malignant. The risk of malignancy is highest in serous and lowest in benign cystic teratoma, as you can see from this. Well, origin, you can see, I've talked about it. Pathologies, the mucinous cystadenomas can become huge. Even up to 10 kg, you can imagine 10 kg tumor in the abdomen, huge. And uh, as a matter of fact, I remember from the book that once there was such big tumor, they had to call a crane to lift it up from abdomen and take it out. So heavy, it could not be removed by the surgeon himself. They are generally pedunculated, and surface is lobulated and whitish bluish, and uh, when you thick walled, when you look through it, they are translucent. Whereas serous adenomas, they are smooth, shining, and generally unilocular, and they don't get as big as mucinous adenomas. And dermoid cyst is doesn't grow that big. It is of moderate size and thick capsule. Its contents are important. It may inside contain hair, teeth, bones, anything. That's a very important factor which differentiates dermoid or benign cystic teratoma from other cystic teratoma. Cut section, mucinous cystadenomas sort of loculated, and the generally serous cystadenomas unilocular, but it can be multilocular as well. And I told you that uh, in dermoid cyst or benign cystic teratoma, you can see these materials. Microscopy will show you the cells from which they are arising. And the complication can be there. I have put these few pictures. This is mucinous cystadoma. You can see multilocular, and the mucin shining through the cyst walls. And this is serous. It's unilocular, thick walled, and pedunculated. You can see the attachment was only through one area, rest of the cyst was free. Brain tumor, although uncommon, but I thought I'll just briefly touch it. They are small to moderate in size and generally late in age, in menopausal age or over 50 years. Uh, and the surface is smooth and it is solid, and the yellowish color can be seen through the capsule. Histopathology shows fibrous tissue, and mm, the complication of this tumor are that there can be postmenopausal bleeding or Meig syndrome. This is a gross granite tumor which is solid, and it looks like fibroid when we cut it. Sascot tumors are uh, they produce hormones. This is the difficulty about it. The tumor could be small, but because they produce hormones, they cause clinical features according to the production of the hormones. And these are, they could be producing uh, testosterone, male hormone, or female hormone. These are the various features. I will not go. It may be interested. They look like this. This is a picture of a dermatologist. Beautiful picture. It shows hair and solid parts. Sometimes you can see figures like fetus, or you can see teeth in dermatologist. Now, after this, coming to the clinical management of the cyst. Clinical features of benign ovarian tumors are they are seen in younger patients. They are generally unilateral, except in 12 to 15% are bilateral and in dermatitis. They are pedunculated, they are mobile, and generally they are not solid, they are cystic. Only very few Brenner tumor, fibroma, they are solid, others are cystic. Their surface is smooth, and generally there is no ascites. Uh, they are slow growing. They may lie there for years, and may not produce any symptoms at all, except presence of a mass in abdomen. As I said just now, they lie quietly for many years, and most of them are asymptomatic, unless they are hormone producing. They are usually discovered during routine physical examination or routine ultrasound examination. When I say ultrasound examination, I like to add to it, you know, the first part I said functional cysts. Functional cysts, they resolve spontaneously. So when a patient gets ultrasound report, it shows a cyst, it raises anxiety. And so it's so important that the sonologist should not disclose the diagnosis or the findings to the patient, and let the gynecologist talk about it, because they know most of the cysts are functional. You only have to wait. There's no reason to rush, no reason to get anxious, because in a young girl, if ultrasound diagnoses a presence of a cyst, then parents get terribly worried, because they don't want surgery on unmarried girl, because in socially it carries certain stigma. So it's so important that ultrasound report should be confidential, it should be carefully studied, and if it is function cyst, then you have to reassure the patient only. In a neoplastic cyst, that too, you don't have to rush to remove it, where the method of removal could be laparoscopy or laparotomy, but there's no urgency in removing benign ovarian tumor. This is so important. And you can wait in case there's confusion whether it is functional cyst or neoplastic. You can say wait for 3 months. If it is functional cyst, it will disappear. If it is neoplastic cyst, it will not disappear, as well it will grow a little in size. So it can be removed after 3 months. There's no rush about it, because it's not going to cause any problem in those 3 months. Most of them lie quietly, but some of them may cause discomfort. Discomfort generally is because of size, or weight, pressing on the bladder, rectum, or intestine. But generally speaking, is even with huge tumors, it may not be there. And one of the ways, certainly the abdomen is getting big and large, and if the girl is unmarried, there's no pregnancy, so they get worried, so they come to you with abdominal mass. And other gastrointestinal, urinary, other symptoms may be there. I told you, if it is hormone producing tumor, then the symptoms will be according to the hormone which is being produced. If it is testosterone, masculinizing tumor, then male features will become prominent. Otherwise, female hormone producing tumors will disrupt the menstrual cycle and have similar features. I put this to show you that on the left side, benign, see, it's all black, very thin wall, and no septa, nothing inside. Generally speaking, this is a benign tumor. This, although the size is 7.5 centimeters, quite big. But on the right side, if the cyst shows solid mass inside and thick wall, generally you should suspect it is a malignant tumor. Well, when anybody comes to you, this is what you have been taught in third year. Abdominal examination is inspection, palpation, percussion, and auscultation. In this ovarian tumor, palpation is very important, and percussion too, because it will help you to find out whether there is ascites. Ascites means malignancy. So, absence of ascites is reassuring that it is a benign tumor. And obviously, gynecologists will do bimanual pelvic examination, where you can feel the mass on the side of the uterus or above the uterus, and normal uterus can be palpated. So these help in making a diagnosis. I mentioned already ultrasound scan, which can give you the features of benign ovarian tumors. They're all black, uniformly distributed. That means fluid, thin fluid, and cyst wall is thin, no papillae, no septa appearing there. And if ultrasound is not helping you a lot, then tumor markers, I'll show you in the next slide. What are they? They can help you in making a diagnosis. Similarly, X-rays, particularly in dermoid cysts, it will show you presence of teeth, bone in the pelvis, which means it is benign cystic teratoma. And of course, in doubt, laparoscopy will tell you whether it's a benign tumor or a malignant tumor. These are tumor markers which can be used, but the top of the list, CA125, is the most commonly used tumor marker because epithelial tumors are most common. But I would like to give you a little warning that every time CA125 is raised, it doesn't mean epithelial ovarian tumor, because it can be raised in so many other non-neoplastic conditions like endometriosis and other conditions like that. So if there is CA125 raised even up to 300 or so, doesn't mean it is malignant tumor, but the higher CA125, more chances that this epithelial tumor is likely to be malignant. If it is less than 300, it is more likely that it is benign ovarian tumor. Beta HCG is a very diagnostic test for choriocarcinoma, and similarly, CEA and germ cell tumors, they can all have this tumor markers which can be a help in making a diagnosis. Ultrasound scan is so important, I put it again, that benign tumors, they have these features. They are generally unilateral, but they can be bilateral in 12 to 15%. They generally all cystic, thin wall, and no septa, or if septa are present, they are thin and non-echogenic cavity. And TVS shows regular vascular branching and not irregular. So ultrasound is the most important test in helping us in making a diagnosis. If a patient comes to you and you suspect that there is ovarian tumor, remember these 5 things before you announce that patient has ovarian tumor. First of all, think of the common thing, full bladder. If you find a mass in abdomen, ask the patient, go out, pass urine, and then come back. I remember when I was in England once, those were the days of no ultrasound. And a patient with huge tumor was brought for laparotomy on the operating table, as the routine is to empty the bladder before we do laparotomy, pass catheter into the urinary bladder. The moment urinary bladder was catheterized and the whole cyst drained into the bucket, it was full bladder. Wrong diagnosis. So remember, if you feel a mass in abdomen, always think of first full bladder, because so easy. Ask the patient to go out and pass urine. Simple. If the mass was a retention of urine, it would disappear. So you'll be saved from embarrassment of making a wrong diagnosis. Second thing is pregnancy. If you find a mass in abdomen, and even if the patient is not married, as a gynecologist, it's important. Even if the patient is not married, think of pregnancy. Think of pregnancy. It will save you from unnecessary laparotomy, unnecessary embarrassment. So for that, you don't have to do pregnancy test. Do a test called beta HCG. Simple. Yeah. Because if an unmarried girl you ask for pregnancy test, the parents will get very upset with you. What do you think of yourself? She's unmarried. Why do you think of pregnancy? No, no, no. Just ask for beta HCG test. It will help you. And it can happen that the pregnancy is there, but there's a fibroid which is not ovarian cyst, it is a fibroid. So during pregnancy, you don't have to remove fibroid, but during pregnancy, in some cases, you will have to remove cyst. So it's so important to differentiate whether the mass is ovarian cyst or a fibroid. And of course, large, huge ascites can be confused with huge ovarian cyst. And next, I told you earlier that fibroids do not cause any symptom. I beg your pardon. The ovarian cysts do not cause any symptoms or complications. They lie low. They lie quietly and without causing symptoms. But if there is a pain or anything, it means a complicated ovarian tumor. A complicated ovarian tumor. And these are the complications which can take place in any pedunculated tumor or ovarian cyst or tumor. One, torsion of the pedicle, the intracystic hemorrhage, it can become infected, or the capsule can rupture. And of course, the other complication is benign tumor can become a malignant tumor. Then it comes to the management of ovarian cysts or ovarian. That I've divided this into young patients and menopause or post-menopausal patients. In a young patient, if you find a diagnosis of functional cyst, or then the simple thing is that if you look at this in the middle, its size is only 5 to 8 centimeters, and all other features are benign. CA 125 is less than 300, then just follow up or give OCP. I told you earlier, OCP helps to reduce functional cysts, and generally functional cysts will disappear. But if during these 3 months there's increase in size, then do laparoscopic cystectomy. But if there's no increase, you can continue the follow-up. Whereas if you make a diagnosis cystic teratoma, benign cystic teratoma or dermoid cyst, then irrespective of size, it requires laparoscopic surgery, because if the cystic teratoma gets ruptured, then its contents are so irritant, they cause severe peritonitis, will make the patient severely ill. So Remember, dermoid cysts or cystic teratoma, even small size, you have to remove it laparoscopically. It can be easily done because generally they are not very big. And all other cysts, if you have the facility of laparoscopy, well and good. Otherwise, do laparotomy and remove them because all benign cysts, they don't disappear except functional cysts. And if they stay there for too long and they gradually become big, eventually there's a risk of malignancy. So benign cysts, if they are getting bigger, then they need removal. Then in postmenopause patients, if you see a cyst 3 to 5 centimeters, small cyst, maybe, and CA 125 less than 300, maybe there is a room for follow-up 6 weeks, only 6 weeks. And if there's increase in CA 125, then do laparotomy and remove it. Rarely one would be convinced to follow up another 6 weeks in case the patient is reluctant. But generally speaking, even small tumors in postmenopausal patients, they need, if the CA125 is raised, then for removal by laparotomy. And if the size is bigger than that, then straight away, don't wait. Well, I put the treatment like this. If the tumor is small or you suspect functional, then treatment is expectant treatment. Don't do wait. Or if you suspect functions is just OCP. Then if after OCP or after 3 months the tumor is still there, it is getting bigger, then the choice is either you can do laparoscopic removal or by laparotomy. And in young patients, it's better to do cystectomy rather than oophorectomy because the patient needs as much ovarian tissue as possible for her fertility. But in older patient, you can do oophorectomy. Cystectomy means removal of the cyst from the ovary and preserving maximum ovarian tissue. But if I've told you in menopausal age, the better treatment is to either laparoscopically or by laparotomy, total abdominoplasty and bilateral salpingoophorectomy. And this because the patient, uh, if you remove only ovarian tumor and the report becomes malignant, then you'll have some embarrassment of taking that patient back for TH and BSO. So in postmenopausal patients, even if the tumor looks benign, it's better to do TH and BSO. If you have laparoscopic facility, that will be even better. I put 3 cases for your discussion. First case is 22-year-old unmarried patient, which is quite common. Is brought to you with an ultrasound showing right-sided ovarian cyst 4.5 centimeter by 3.8 centimeter by 4 centimeters. Not too big. She has no other complaint. How will you? So in this case, we'll confirm that it is unilocular thin wall cyst, and we can advise her, I just do nothing, wait for 3 months, or give OCP for 3 months and then review. If the cyst is smaller, then obviously it was functional. But if it continues to become bigger, then it is not functional. It is neoplastic, which should be treated otherwise. So in this patient, we'll uh, confirm by ultrasound the features and then give her OCP and review after 3 months. Case 2, a 30-year-old para 2, last child born 5 years ago, has regular menstrual periods and has severe menstrual pain on ultrasound. Severe menstrual pain on ultrasound, she has bilateral cysts, fairly large, 8 centimeters, 7 centimeters, 5 centimeters. How will you manage? Obviously, in this case, the differential diagnosis is endometriosis because the dysmenorrhea is caused by endometriosis, not by benign tumors. So in this patient, we'll have to investigate whether she has other features or the signs of endometriosis, and if need be, we'll do diagnostic laparoscopy to find out and the spots or endometriosis anywhere else, and then again, she is a young patient, only 30-year-old. We'll do bilateral cystectomy. And mind you, in endometriosis, cystectomy is very difficult to do, but we'll try to preserve as much tissue as possible and follow her up with medical treatment of endometriosis, which generally 3 months course of Zoladex or uh, uh, to suppress pituitary so that the endometriosis is hormone linked. The hormone goes to sleep. Endometriosis goes to sleep. Then case 3, a patient 60-year-old had menopause 5 years ago, has abdominal distension on ultrasound. She has right ovarian tumor, 10 by 8 by 10, and no other complaints. I told you, in postmenopausal patient, even if you think the tumor is benign, the only treatment is do laparotomy, and at laparotomy, take fluid for cytology, confirm by looking at the features of the tumor, whether it's benign or malignant. And even if it is benign, we'll do total hysterectomy, bilateral salpingopterectomy. And uh, if it looks malignant, we'll add to it omentectomy and follow her up with whatever the oncologist tells you, either chemotherapy or immunotherapy. I've given you 10 MCQs. Look at them. Try to answer them without looking at the answers at the back and remember them. I've also given you SCQs, 5 of them. These are on the model of the UHS examination. I hope they are of some help to you. Thank you very much. I repeatedly keep telling you, if you have any comments to make, please do that. I'll try to incorporate your suggestions as I've done by incorporating 3 clinical cases. Normally in postgraduate classes, I start only with the clinical class because I expect them to know the theory part of the subject. In your case, you need theory part as well, so that the background is built up, and only then we go to clinical cases. But if you feel that only clinical cases should be discussed, I'm quite willing to do it, but send me the suggestions. Thank you very much. I appreciate your presence.